Doing today? Welcome to my photo live stream where we talk about photography and I answer any questions you might have that are photography related and also to catch up on the community, see how everybody's doing well. How everybody's doing, I'm doing well, thanks. Uh, I sorry fluttering a little bit. I just almost literally walked in the door about 5 minutes ago. One of the reasons I'm starting a little bit later than usual is I went out with a couple of friends to do some birding at a local park. It's it's really the only time we can get together, and so it's nice, and it's a nice day. So I got a few shots. A little frustrated. I took the OM3 out with the 300 f4, and I got a chance to try out. David has the 150 to 600, so I took a few shots with that. I'm loading them into the computer now, so maybe I can show you a couple of shots I did this morning unedited before we there were a few. My problem was I had the camera set to my street photography settings, and so I fumbled a lot in the beginning, and then I loaded in my bird settings, but the bird settings had set up, I was trying something new, so they weren't ideal either, and uh, I missed a lot of shots that I should have gotten. I got one or two decent ones out of like 800 shots that I took, but when you're using Pro Capture and SH2, 800 shots is what? Like, maybe 2 or 3 minutes worth of shooting? Not that much, right? Let me check in the chat section, see if I can get that working and see how everybody's doing. See, Zoltan is here, good to see you, and, Zoltan had a good question here, I'll get back to that, and, Jeff Painter, good to see you, and, Darko, I see is here, and let's see, AJ Cooper, good to see you, and Marsha, always good to see you. Anthony, good to see you from the north. Yeah, it's cold up there all the time. I could never live up there. I don't think I'd even want to visit. It's so cold. I'm so tired of the winter. I can't wait for like full on spring and summer to come. I'm very comfortable in the 70s, uh, maybe the 60s, but I prefer like in the low 80s. It's kind of my sweet spot for me. And Erna, good to see you. And some more questions there. Okay, so I frame the chat or the live stream as an open Q&A, so if you have any questions, feel free to answer them. I'll do my best, or feel free to ask them, and I'll do my best to answer them. And those of you that have the answer are welcome to reply in the chat as well. I encourage you guys to talk to each other because this is a community. Um, okay, Eric's here. Good to see you. Oh, you're out at the Mark station. Okay. And let's see. Plato, my goodness, good to see you, Plato. David Black from Southern Indiana, nice. And all kinds of stuff here. And Marco, hey Marco, wow, you're pretty reliable. You've been hitting all my chats lately. And you're one of the most busy people I know, so I'm really flattered you take time to sit down and watch. Um, okay, so just a quick one here just came in. Did I shoot the OM1? I shot the OM3. Because I was thinking I might do some mushroom shots too, or fungi. But I just didn't get around to it. So, and that's what I like about the OM3 is it'll do everything, right? Just like the OM1, but the OM3 is fancy pants, right? So I just rather take out. It has the newer autofocusing, which I'm still trying to feel out if it's better than the OM1. And I did finally update the firmware a couple of weeks ago on the OM1. Uh, I'm trying to get a feel for if it's a lot better, a little better, or about the same. Right now, I'm feeling it's about the same. It's a little better at boxing things, though, like the white box. I will give it that. It's better at boxing and finding the eye. That definitely is improved. But the overall autofocus, like when you're just trying to get focus at all, seems about the same. But okay, let me go up here to the top. And Zoltan is asking, is the new M3 the best camera on the market at the moment? Well, that's a very subjective question. If you ask me, I will say yes. But, uh, best for what is the question, right, really? Uh, I think it's a great all-around everyday camera, it'll do everything, and it's priced, very competitively in my opinion. I think it is kind of the best camera on the market for a general purpose camera, right? It'll do birding, it'll do street photography. It has a lot of creative features for people that want to do film simulations or dial in their own color recipes. It's also a really nice hybrid camera for photo and video. Has great battery life, great weather sealing, certified at IP53, whatever that means. You can get weather sealed lenses, so a good selection of lenses because it's not just about the camera, it's about the system. And you can get a great selection of lenses and Micro Four Thirds to do just about anything you want to do. And image stabilization, of course. So it has a lot going for it. And then on top of that, the computational features, which you can use time to time, right? Like I was using the live ND yesterday to do some, and I'll show that shot to do sort of not really long exposure. I was only able to get maybe a half a second or something exposure because it was a pretty bright day. But I got a nice little bit of blur of the water of a fountain, and then the high res shot mode and the live ND and the grad ND. These computational features also improve the image clarity and sharpness and quality of the image because it's stacking, right? Images together to create the final image. So in that sense, I think that's one of the greatest benefits of the computational features is the stacking of images to give you better sharpness and clarity and definition, all that stuff. So I like that. So yeah, for all these things, I like the OM3, and I think it's the best on the market. If you want more uh, genre-specific type cameras, right? It can be argued in any direction, right? Landscape, go medium format, maybe a GFX 100S2 with a few lenses. You want the best sports action wildlife, I would say OM3 with a 150 to 400. So there's a lot of a lot of tiers and genres here, but I find the OM3 is kind of the best all around. It gives you a little bit of the best of everything, particularly for street photography. I think it's probably the best. The only drawback for a lot of photographers is they prefer the tilt screen rather than the fully articulating for street. I I don't have a problem either way. I prefer actually the articulating, regardless of genre. But uh, I say that because, for example, when I'm doing my architectural stuff, a lot of times I just loaded the images onto my computer, so we'll look at those a little later. A lot of times I have the camera mounted on a tripod, and I can't see the screen from this direction, right? And if I had a tilt only, I'd only be able to tilt it up, and then I'd have to look up like this, and that's not a great angle. So what I like to do is, I'd be looking at it from this direction. You can see, like, if it tilted, it wouldn't help me. So I can just do that, and then I can see the screen, from an angle. So I'd be looking at it like this. I do this a lot, actually, because a lot of times the camera will be up against the wall or near a wall, and I can't get behind the camera. So it's really useful for that as well. Uh, so that's why I prefer the fully articulating because it allows me to get angles that just wouldn't be possible about with a tilt screen. Because everybody talks about, if you're not going to be vlogging, why do you need it to flip all the way around? I rarely do this, but I very, very often have the screen angled at a right angle like this, and I'm looking at the camera this way to compose my shots. So that's why I like the fully articulating. A lot of people like the tilt because they like to be a little bit discreet when they're shooting, and they can hold it at waist level, and it's almost like a waist level viewfinder, right? And I get that, It's a little easier if that's the only thing you're gonna use the tilt screen for, but I use it for many, many other things. Um, so if I wanna do the, top down, I have to swing the screen all the way out to look down. So it's effectively the same thing. It's just not quite as discreet because now you got the screen sticking out on the side. Anyhow, uh, good question. Good question. I'd say, uh, if you ask me, OM3 is really the best all-around camera on the market. The best camera on the market. I think you really need to get into a specific genre before we talk about what's the best camera for this genre. Okay, and Jeff has some feedback there for you. He's loving it, using it for all types of photography. That's what I mean. It's a very, very good general purpose camera that really it's a jack of all trades, but it doesn't really have any weak spots, in my opinion. It's pretty strong in all areas. There are practical uh, uh, compromises there in ergonomics, single card slot, no PC sync port. There's a lot of things, little things around the edges that make it a little bit less camera than say the OM3. I'm sorry, the OM1 Mark II. I digress. Okay. Good morning, Darko. And see, what was the next question that I saw here? I need to get some coffee. I just had a big breakfast. I need to, after I eat like around lunchtime, because it's kind of a late breakfast, I get so sleepy. Erna has a question. Hi, Rob. Good to see you. Why is it not possible to use electronic shutter in bulb mode on the OM1? It automatically switches to mechanical shutter when I shoot in bulb. What's the reason? Uh, well, the only thing I can think of, I never really noticed, but I think you're right. The only reason I can think of is that, and it could be, I think they could fix this in a firmware too, right? They can certainly make bulb mode electronic only. But I think the reason is because if you want to use the noise reduction filter, num it has to have a mechanical shutter to close on the sensor to record the noise while the sensor is on. And if it was electronic shutter only, you wouldn't be able to do that, right? I suppose they could add in firmware where if you turn on noise reduction, it would force mechanical shutter if you were in electronic shutter. But I think they just skipped that whole thing and decided to just say, let's just make a mechanical shutter only, and then you can turn on or off noise reduction. I'm not talking about the filter. I'm talking about because there's a noise filter, and then there's noise reduction. Noise reduction is the actual mechanical shutter closing while the sensor is active to help reduce noise. So I think it's more along those lines. If I had to guess, because I can't think of any pragmatic reason to have a mechanical shutter only bulb mode, other than for the noise reduction feature. Uh, and Ernest says, would you recommend using noise filter on the OM1 when shooting with high ISO? Or is it better to leave filter off and then denoise in Photolab, or maybe both? You know, it depends. If it's a single image, okay, you're taking one or two shots. I would use the noise filter in camera rather than doing it in post-processing. Because the noise filter in camera is reading directly off the sensor. It's not the noise filter, it's noise reduction. Wait a minute. Okay, well, okay, let me distinguish. There's noise filter, which is what you're asking about, and that is a uh, software process. And then there is noise reduction, which is a mechanical process or a physical process of reducing noise. Using noise filter in camera, I would turn it off and use Photolab. If you have a really good, like Photolab, a really good noise reduction software, I would just noise reduct do noise reduction of a raw image in Photolab. We're talking about if you're shooting JPEG only, do it in camera. If you're shooting RAW, use DxO between the two. It's way better, no comparison. Um, what made me lead to think that you're talking about JPEG? Yeah, number two, the noise filter only applies to JPEGs. So if you're shooting RAW or RAW plus JPEG, the noise filter is only going to apply to the JPEG portion. If you're shooting RAW only, uh, it doesn't have any effect on the raw image itself, but it may have an effect on the uh, JPEG thumbnail that's embedded into the raw file that you would see. So when it comes to raw images, the noise filter is irrelevant. When it comes, unless you're shooting JPEG only, then in that case, I would probably use the noise filter in the camera over, say, Photolab or any other type of noise reduction. The reasons go a little bit deep in the sense that when the camera is reading the image off of the sensor when you take the picture, it has the actual raw data of the noise. And the noise filter is programmed to sniff out that noise directly off the sensor before creating the JPEG image. So in theory, it should be a better noise reduction software in camera than if you were to do it after the fact of a JPEG image. So if you're trying to noise reduce a JPEG image in DxO, I would recommend do it in camera instead. But we're talking about raw files where noise filter has no effect at all on the raw. Noise reduction does. That's a different process. Okay, Ernest, so what do you think of Lee Hoy as a completely different personality? Yeah, of course. That's why I love Lee Hoy. We all have to be different. We all have to be ourselves. We have to do what I always say, you do you, right? And I completely respect and can connect with Lee Hoy's presentation, way of teaching, and uh, really drawing off of his experience, all of these things, and we use the same camera system, which makes a big difference, right? um, but yeah, Lee Hoy is awesome. So, why if you watch Lee Hoy and his delivery, his personality, all connect with how you learn your photography, then yeah, there's really very few people that have the credentials and experience that Lee Hoy does when they're teaching wildlife type photography. Very few, you know. So he is an excellent resource for wildlife photography and specifically OM system cameras, even more so because that's what he uses. And if you can connect with him in that sense, that's great because there's a lot of people that are very competent, have experience, let's say in terms of experience and level of competency is the same as Lee Hoy, but have very different personality, right? You may connect better with someone like that than Lee Hoy. So you have to find someone that you can connect with, that their brain, the way if they deliver and explain things connects with the way your brain thinks about things. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't try and go outside of the box once in a while from your perspective, right? Sometimes that's how you learn. But yeah, that's that's my shortish answer. And says the Arctic ice is in with harp seals on the ice. Polar bears migrate with the seals, but there has been no report yet of polar bears in the area. Okay. Uh, hi Rob. Hope you're all good. I'm doing well, Steve. Thank you. Thank you for asking. And yeah, Eric's at the Mark station. And what? Which man? They completely leveled they leveled Bowie State University. I don't know what's going on over there, but that's shocking. Are they rebuilding it, or did they just get rid of the university altogether? I don't know. I don't have any kids, so why would I care about universities, right? And David Black is here. What type of birds are in your area? Right now, I'm seeing wood ducks, mergansers, uh, Canada geese, and I saw a gold-crowned kinglet this morning, and of course, also the uh, swallows, like tree swallows, barn swallows, are coming out, and of course, the ubiquitous. Uh, why am I drawing a blank? This is the most common duck ever. Beautiful, but it's very common. It'll come to me. But yeah, ducks and a few small birds. Some chicklets, I think they're called. I'm seeing some of those. Marcus, I'm with you, Rob. I can't stand winter. I can't wait until my girls are older and we both move down south. Yeah. But you kind of moved south a little bit though already. I forget where you said you moved to, but it's not New Jersey. It's further south of that. I'm thinking Tennessee myself, long term. I had the weirdest dreams last night. Terrible dreams. I don't know what I did yesterday that would prompt these very disturbing dreams. I'll tell you one part. I dreamed I was an alcohol. I don't drink. I mean, it's extremely rare. I might have 3 or 4 beers a year, right? And on a social basis, and but I don't drink otherwise, right? And it's like I dreamt I was an alcoholic. So weird. I was boozing it up out in the parking lot with the other riffraff. Yeah, I had a bottle of something. That's weird. Why would I dream something like that? I mean, the other parts of the dreams were unpleasant, not related to that. I don't want to talk about, but uh, those I understand. Those are rooted in a lot of fears that I have in my day-to-day life. So I can see those things happening in a dream. But this alcoholism, I don't get that at all. Where's that coming from? I can't wait for the OM3 Mark II. Yeah. I'm curious what the OM3 Mark II would be. I mean, it's like, we'd have to see some pretty big leaps in the flagship camera, and then they would trickle down to the OM3, right? Like it is currently. Because I do believe for most weekend shooters, even the cheap entry-level cams today are so feature-packed that camera tech is more than we need, power users aside. Yep. Yeah, any camera, any point and shoot. Use your cell phone. If you just want to take pictures and enjoy the great outdoors and everything that wants to and to look at things through the lens, whether it's on your phone or a legit camera, you know, what's the difference, right? And Zoltan, thank you, Rob. You said what I wanted to hear about the OM3. Oh, okay, good. Makes sense, right? I mean, you have to take in context, though. I'm a huge fan of OM systems, right? So you have to look at a diversity of opinions, and they're out there, right? I think the biggest complaint is about the price and the EVF, and I mean, just stuff that I I think is a little unfair to compare sometimes, but uh, then again, maybe not. They made a camera. It's open to praise and criticism alike. So look at the criticisms as well. Those are the ones that I know off the top of my head were pretty big was pricing and EVF. Dual card slot, kind of 50-50 there. Articulating screen, there's about a 50-50 there, and no grip. But there's third-party grips coming out. I mean, honestly, for the same price, you can get an OM1 Mark II, right? If it's still on sale. So you have options there. And technically, the OM1 Mark II is a better camera uh, without the creative features, right? But I think the OM3 is a better hybrid camera because you can save video presets and uh, it has a separate video dial, which a lot of cameras already have, but they finally did it for OM systems. Not that it's a big deal. You could always menu dive and get to the settings that you want for video, but having it right there on a dial makes it so much easier. Much better than the way Sony did it. They mixed the mode dial and the thing together. That's a bit awkward. I think my Fuji's like that too, but and Bird is here. Good to see you. Good morning. And Jimmy says Olympus sold its camera division a few years ago. Has the new buyer maintained its quality of both camera body and lenses? Please. Also, have they made improvements to the Micro Four Thirds sensor? Okay. I would say they've definitely maintained the quality. I haven't really heard of any issues of the new cameras coming out having any specific quality control type issues, right? Where they're coming out defective or things are breaking all the time. So the level of quality seems to, in terms of production, seem to have been maintained. The design and the build quality of the cameras also has been maintained. The OM1 Mark 1, OM1 Mark 2, very, very durable, solid cameras. The OM3, by all accounts, seems to be a very durable camera. The OM5 that came out was basically a carbon copy of the OM5 Mark III. Uh, so the build quality is identical there. And then, because they're using the same manufacturing plants, right, that they just built in Vietnam. So the fabrication and building of the machines of the cameras should be identical. The question is, are there any quality control issues where they're releasing cameras and they're having all kinds of problems? I've not seen or heard of that being an issue at all. As far as the lenses go, again, they seem to be perfectly fine. So I think the only concern has been the the research and development of developing new features and progressing uh, and staying ahead of the competition, right? And being able to do so at a pace. And that was the idea, or that's what was kind of talked about when it first was announced that they were selling, that we're going to be a smaller, more efficient, being able to adapt quickly to market conditions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whether they've accomplished that or not is a subjective opinion. I think they're doing fine. They're releasing cameras at a reasonable pace, 2 to 3 years. Uh, they just don't have the bandwidth to release multiple models of cameras at the same time, right? Like other manufacturers are doing. So I would say I'm content with the pace, quality, quality control, and features that the cameras are offering. And then specifically to sensors, I don't think there's anything new there. The OM1 Mark 1, which clearly was been in the works when it was owned under Olympus, is using uh, is using a new sensor. But that's not an OM system sensor. Sensor technology, I think, for the most part, has been relegated to Sony. Sony does all the fabrication of the sensors, with very, very few exceptions, right? Uh, so it's a matter of what did they contract to buy? I don't know how it works, but I assume that they did a lot of R&D or research and development for a specific kind of sensor that they want to buy. And they're buying the sensors off the shelf, meaning they're not designing them or getting them custom made for the OM system cameras. They're buying sensors off the shelf that anybody else can buy. There might be some licensing agreements that might keep someone from buying it too soon after a OM system starts using it, but uh, so and this goes back to what I was saying about I don't know if OM system has the bandwidth to stay competitive uh, long term because of this the sensor technology and all these other technologies. Other companies are huge and they have huge R&D and they can keep up that pace. The home system has to be able to do that, so hopefully they can. I wouldn't say they haven't done it. I think they are at this point, but there's a lot of question about if they can continue to. So the sensor is the same one in the Ohm One Mark One, which was uh, that's what they're currently using, and we'll see how long they keep using that. I mean, the life cycle is typically 7 to 10 years for a sensor, right? Once they adapt a sensor, it seems like it's 7 to 10 years that they keep using it, and refining the software side, upgrading to TruePic 7, 8, 9. They're up to TruePic 10 now, and doing the programming to take advantage of that sensor the best they can. While at the same time, in the background, maybe they're working on a new sensor and doing R&D and developing the software, the new TruePic 11 chip for the new sensor, whatever that may be. It's got to happen. They can't, but it'll probably be a couple of years before we even see rumors about a new sensor and processor for home systems. It's just my opinion, but I wouldn't worry about it. They make really very fine cameras as it is. That will last you the next 3 to 5 years. Uh, if you're not, uh, unless you want the very latest all the time, then uh, 3 to 5 years is a very long time to wait, right? You probably might upgrade even before then to another system. But at the current pace that they're going every 3 to 5 years, I think it's a pretty reasonable uh, timeline for you to buy one camera and then think about upgrading maybe in 3 to 5 years if there's some significant upgrades, but there usually is. And Rob, do you tend to adjust highlight shadow curves while shooting, or do you tend to set it and forget? I set it and forget it. And I'm pretty much a post-processing guy now. I don't do too much in camera. I do it for fun sometimes, but not much. I normally set it and forget it. So I'll have some presets, I'll save them to a custom mode, and I'll just use that. Um, so and then if I want to make adjustments, I'll do it in post-processing. Jimmy says, "I still use my OMD EM5 from 2020." Yeah, I mean, a fabulous camera, right? Um, David says, "I wish home system will get their dual hinged rear screen. One screen for tilt and the other for, fully articulating. Maybe the OM1 Mark III will get it." Yeah, that seems to be pretty popular. A lot of people seem to like that. I don't care one way or the other. I have it on my A7R5, and but every photographer is different. You might have a different use case or workflow where that kind of screen will make a huge difference in your workflow and how you interact with the camera. For the things that I do, I'm on a tripod in a studio with that camera a lot of times, and I just tilt it up. I rarely need to flip it all the way out, but usually in the studio, I have the camera hooked up to a big monitor anyway. I don't even use the rear screen. If I'm out in the field, I'm usually doing the fully articulating thing, if at all. Uh, there is some argument to be made about doing vertical, like mounting your camera vertically, at which point the fully articulating screen is you're not able to use it because it gets blocked by the tripod, right? The mount. And a tilt screen will be better in that situation. So if you do a lot of vertical type, you're on an L bracket and you're doing vertical shots, a fully articulating screen would be sort of in the way and not usable as a regular tilt screen. And Paul says, still don't understand why it needs to take a shot with shutter closed for noise reduction. Why can't they just be stored in camera? It is not going to change if the shutter is closed. Well, it does change. Uh, the noise pattern is not always the same A lot of it has to do with how long is the bulb mode running, right? So if you have a 30-second exposure versus a 60-second exposure versus a 10-second exposure, the noise pattern is going to be different. So that's why you have to do it with every exposure. Uh, why it needs to take a shot with the shutter closed for noise? Why can't they just be stored? Yeah, so you can't store it in camera. Also, temperature has an effect on how much noise is going to be in the image. So if you're taking a shot at, say, 50 degrees versus 30 degrees, right? The noise is going to be different. So yeah, there's no way to store all of those variables. If you have the variable of shutter exposure time and also the variable of temperature, there's no way to store that data in camera, right? So you have to do it. You have to do it in real time. And Anthony said, I'm satisfied with the 20 megapixel sensor, but I think for OM systems to stay competitive, I need to bring out 3 sensors. I would be happy with one really good sensor like the one they have now and using it across all their systems, all their different models of cameras. So OM1, OM3, same sensor. The OM5 Mark II, same sensor. It needs to be in the next edition, OM5 Mark II, if it comes out, it needs to be the same sensor. I think any camera they develop going forward should use the same sensor like Fuji's doing, except for the XM5, but 40 megapixel sensor in their X100 VI or X106, the XT5, the XH2. These 3 bodies have the same exact sensor. Outside of their specialty sensors, uh, I think the XH2S might have a different sensor. And OM Systems could do something like that, but I don't think they have the bandwidth for it. I don't think they have the bandwidth to sell 2 cameras that are virtually identical, but one has a sort of like a landscape type sensor, which is going to give you more details, high resolution, and then a video or low light type sensor that's going to be focused more on street photography and video. They just don't have the bandwidth, say OM1 Mark II S and OM1 Mark II. I don't think they can do it. I'm sure they'd love to, but I don't think they can do it. And the market wouldn't support it. They just don't have enough market share and not selling enough to justify doing that either. And my chat jumped all the way up. Sorry, give me a second. OMG, the ads are attacking. I'm missing. Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I turned the ads down to minimum. And after the stream's over, I wait about an hour and then I go in and delete a lot of the ads. I'll see like 30 or 40 ads in a 2 or 3 hour stream. That's ridiculous. That's like every few minutes. I delete them so it's every 10 to 15 minutes. You might see an ad in one of my streams after, if you're watching this after the fact. And this side towards screen, good morning. Did I get the Fujifilm GFX 100? No. I'm not spending $5,000 for a fixed focal length, fixed lens camera. Uh, it's not happening. So I put a poll up, which one would you buy? Let's see where that's at. Uh, Here, whoops, sorry. Here's the current poll. So 125 votes, 20% would buy the GFX 100 RF, 39% would buy the Leica Q3, 19% for the Leica Deluxe 8, and the X100V, 22%. So basically I said, if you have the budget, what fixed lens camera, and you wanted a fixed lens camera, which one would you pick? And this is the response I got. So overwhelmingly, it's the Leica Q3, which surprises me because that's also a fixed focal length. I would pick this, the Deluxe 8, because it has a variable, a zoom. zoom lens, 24 to 75 zoom. So it's much more versatile and easy to use. It's the smallest, lightest of the 4 cameras here. So for me, T-Lux 8 all day long. You know, these other cameras like the Q3, the X100V, these are nice cameras, but they're much bigger, bulkier cameras, particularly the Q3. And the GFX 100 RF, that camera makes no sense to me at all. I just don't understand it. I mean, I guess money no object, and you're a hardcore enthusiast, it might be kind of a fun camera to have. 100 megapixels, and you just have to be conscious. If you're an enthusiast, you're going to be conscious that there's no IBIS, that it's an f4, that it's fixed focal length. You know, you're going to understand all that when you buy it, and the consequences of that, right? When you buy it. Nobody that's just starting out in photography should buy a camera like that, because that's just too many limitations. But an enthusiast, I think, they know what they're getting, they know the limitations, and they understand the consequences of those limitations. That's a perfectly fine camera for them. But for me, I that's too much money. If I had the budget, I would buy it later just because it is a different kind of camera, different experience. So it'd be a kind of an interesting camera to own, money no object. But if I had to pick one, money no object, if I had to pick one, I would pick the Deluxe 8. For all intents and purposes that I would use a fixed lens camera for, the Deluxe 8 fits that the best, in my opinion. Okay, Darko. Ooh, you gotta get ready. Okay, thanks for dropping in, Darko. We'll catch up with you next time. And Angelo is here from the Netherlands. Hello, good to see you. And let's see. Sorry, my chat just jumped up. Robert's in, Wayne Cox, good to see you guys. And Rob, what do you think about the interview done by Petapixel with OM System Solution Manager when they said they will keep at 20 megapixels? I didn't see that interview. And I started to watch Robin's stream on that topic. I didn't know it was in reference to an article by Petapixel. But the short answer to this very short thing here, they will keep 20 megapixels, so it's fine. I don't see any issue. And I think this reminds me, there was a video that Rick sent me. uh, I got an email from one of you guys asking me a very similar question, but they didn't mention the petapixel thing. You didn't mention the petapixel article in your email. You talked about Robin Wong's video, and I started to watch it so I could answer your email. I just haven't watched it. That's why I haven't responded to your email. Um, I mean, I can't. Oh, so there was a video by that Rick asked me to watch. It was a 2-minute video, so it was a short, maybe 1 minute. It was a short. It wasn't even a full-on video. So that was easy to watch. But it was something about Kodak. A guy was, it was like a TED talk or something, but the guy was up there talking about how Kodak was, once the biggest ever, right? They were huge, 100,000 employees, etc. Whatever big is. They were big. And now they're just sort of a novelty company. That was his words in the thing. But what happened, right? And it's because, and the short answer was, it's because Kodak thought that they were in the film business, and they stuck to film. They didn't go digital, and progress, technology, progress is going to keep going whether you do or not. And, they went they basically went out of business, bankrupt. Now they are who they are. I think they're doing okay now, but regardless of that, the speaker, his key point was, know what business you're in, and that's what Kodak didn't understand, is they didn't know what business they were in. They thought they were in the film business, but they were actually in the memory business, right? Saving memories. And whether it's on film or selling digital cameras, saving memories is the real business you're in, not you're not in the film business of making film. So that makes sense, I think. And I guess by extension, what business is Sony in or OM Systems or Fuji? What business are they in? You don't immediately think of they're in the memories business. You think they're in the camera business, right? At least from our perspective, they're in the camera business. Sony does a lot more than just cameras, but and maybe Fuji and OM Systems, but I know Sony definitely does a lot more than just cameras. But looking at their camera division, they're in the camera business. Are they in the memory business? That's a good question. Because they're effectively the same thing. Uh, but Kodak at this point is still in the film business, and they have a few digital cameras that are rebranded by the Chinese. I don't know what licensing they do. They license their name out. I don't know who owns Kodak. Might be a Chinese company. It's way beyond me. I didn't do any due diligence on this subject at all. I'm just looking at it from a consumer's perspective that Kodak sells film. They sell some cheap digital cameras and other trinkets, right? But I've heard they're doing well. Are they still in the memory business? Not really. Now I think they truly are in just the film business and trinket business, right? They don't make any film cameras. Well, they're not in the camera business. They're in the film business now. Are they in the memory business? I don't know if that's the case. The memory business right now is pretty much that cell phones, right? Cell phones are the memory business. 'Cause it's right there with you all the time. You can share them instantly, all the things that cell phones do. But cameras are in the camera business, but is there something more? Is it just the cameras business, or is it something like, is OM Systems in the wildlife business? Is Fuji in the street photography business? I don't know. It's something to think about. Uh, it's kinda beyond me. It doesn't matter to me what business they're in. They're selling cameras, I'll look at the specs, and I'll decide if that's the right one for me or not. So far, OM System consistently produces cameras that I enjoy, use, and get good results with. Uh, Not that I couldn't do that with other systems, but do I don't enjoy them quite as much, right, as I do the OM Systems. That's why I'm a fan, and you always have to take everything I say in that context. Anything I say about OM Systems, Micro Four Thirds in general, I'm a big fan, so it's gonna be biased towards Micro Four Thirds and OM Systems in particular. And Shri, good to see you. Let's see. So I'll have to, so Angela, before I really comment on this too much, I'll have to see the Petapixel interview and also the video, Watch Robin Long stream, because I'm sure there's always a lot of good feedback in there too from the audience. And, just kind of feed my brain a little bit about what kind of answer would make sense. I don't care about 20 megapixels because I'm not in a business where 20 megapixels isn't enough. Everything I deliver professionally is like 2 megapixels. Anything I share online is on Instagram. That's not even 2 megapixels, I don't think. And my Flickr page, that's one of the few places you can see the full res images and they're JPEG. And it doesn't matter if it's 20 megapixels. And if I want more megapixels, I'll do a pano and stitch them together, all of that stuff. So it doesn't matter to me if OM system stays for 20 megapixels for a while, you know. Um, there's nothing in my workflow or anything that I deliver that requires more than that. Other people may have bigger requirements than that. In which case, OM system might be, not an option for them. Like, I think Jimmy at Red 35 talked about one of his agents want 24 megapixel minimum, so he had no choice, right? It doesn't affect me at all. Oh, thank you, David. So the ducks I couldn't remember before, mallards, very common duck, but yeah, that's it, David. Thank you. Still in Connecticut, will eventually make my way to North Carolina or Texas. Yeah. And ATR Bear, good morning. Good to see you. Hope all is well. All is well. Thank you. And oh, man, my chat keeps jumping around. I was talking to David about this at breakfast this morning. I don't know why my chat is jumping around. John Steiner says, for build quality, my OM3 feels like a rugged beast compares to my almost 50-year-old film. Yeah, it does. It is really solid, this camera. I don't feel any compromise was made in the build quality of this camera. Uh, feels rock solid. And Pete Franks says the same. Quality for me is top notch. Excellent. Yes. And Anthony says, I would like to see new OM1X that will introduce a new sensor tech and image processor. Yeah, that would be nice, but I wouldn't hold your breath. I think they're just, I don't think they can do it. But I didn't think they would do this either. You know what I mean? This totally surprised me. So maybe, Anthony, maybe one is around the corner and surprise me again. I wasn't expecting even this. To be 100% honest, I was not expecting this at all. If you'd asked me in December, maybe early January, I heard about the rumors like in January. If you asked me about this in December, nobody was talking about an OM3 or whenever before the rumors came out. Nobody was talking about a camera like that. And when I got my demo model from OM Systems, the manufacture date on it was October of 2024. So they've been working on it for a long time. They did a good job keeping it a secret, that's for sure. And I'm hoping for Anthony says, I'm hoping for Sony to produce a micro microphone. Okay. For what application is the question? Let's see. And the Great Vanzini's here. Hello. I was messing about with my EP5 and 45. I was impressed how good the pics are. Yeah, they're pretty awesome. I mean, I'll show some pictures from today. I'll scroll through them in a bit. AJ Cooper's here. Says, good morning, everyone. It's way past my bedtime. Oh, I'm sorry. Guess I'll need some more coffee. No, you should just go to bed and watch it after. And then what you can do, if you're watching this after the stream's over, you can just play it at like 1.5x or 2.5x speed. I don't talk very fast. So speeding it up, you'll still be able to understand what I'm saying. And then there's some people you can't play Robin Wong or Jimmy Chang back at 1.5x. They talk too fast. And my chat jumped up again. I have to scroll down, see where we're at. Okay, there's that. Good morning, Roger. Good to see you. Uh, Dougie says, I've just come from the Leica Q2 and the image quality out of the OM1 Mark II is not an issue. The OM lenses are some of the best I've owned. Yeah, that's what impressed me when I first got into Micro Four Thirds or Olympus was the quality of the images that I was getting, which is a testament to the lenses and, of course, the camera's body itself. But camera body doesn't mean anything unless you have a good lens to go with it. So the lenses are really good in Olympus and Ohm systems, and Panasonic as well. Overall, I'd have to give an edge to Ohm systems, just my personal experience. Well, it's about 50-50, right? Like the 15 millimeter Leica from Panasonic, I think is better than the 17 1.8 from OM Systems. Assuming they're about the same lens, right? But depending who you ask, some people like the 25 1.8 better than the 25 1.4. I still like the 25 1.4 better, but a lot of people don't like that lens. And had a few minute thought I would join in and say hi. Oh, okay, Darko, good to see you. Why is my chat? My chat jumped all the way back up to almost the beginning. I gotta go all the way to the bottom and then just roll up. So Thomas is here. Good to see you. And I heard OM System is developing a new pen camera. Uh, I don't believe it, but we might be surprised. If they are coming out with one, I haven't heard about it. Uh, it's just a rumor. I mean, I did hear or read something about the pen line is important to them and they plan to continue developing it. Is it currently in development? The way your question is framed is, I don't know. I think it was on DP Review's site. I read the article that they haven't just thought of a concept for the pen line. They need to get the concept first, and then they'll develop the camera around that concept. And Anthony says, would anybody be interested in OM1X 24 megapixel resolution only if it's spotted an all new, more powerful image processor and if the camera is slightly smaller and lighter than the EM1X? So that's kind of a question out to the audience, right? Would you guys be interested in OM1X 24 megapixels, new processor, all that stuff? Uh, but Anthony, even if people answer, I wouldn't take too much uh, away from it because it's such a small sample size. You'd have to do a poll or something. I guess I could put a poll on my page, right? I have to word it so it's clear what I'm asking in the poll. I'll put a poll up later to this effect. Um, there's 81 viewers here. That's pretty awesome. Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. So let me just make sure I got all the chats and I'm gonna try and dig into some of these photos. Oh, Adam's talking about the 20 megapixels, but I believe with every increase in megapixel on the current sensor size, there's an issue with heat, and I believe diffraction, yes. So what, and then you go on about pixel density. So yeah, pixel density is, I think, the highest on Micro Four Thirds. I don't think even the Fujifilm 40 megapixel APS-C sensor has as high a pixel density as 20 megapixel Micro Four Thirds. Certainly not as dense as the Panasonic 24, maybe it's a 25 megapixel. And if you look at the noise levels uh, on the G9 Mark II versus the OM1 Mark II, noise levels are higher at the higher ISOs on the G9 Mark II. Not by much, but it's visible, right? So I think going much beyond 25 megapixels could be very problematic. And that's probably why they don't want to do more than 20. Because how do you maintain the image quality with a higher pixel density, which is susceptible to a lower signal to noise ratio, thereby introducing more noise? Also, uh, dealing with diffraction, right? Every pixel is not going to be able to capture every wavelength of light. So that turns into, well, yeah, it's kind of like diffraction, kind of the same thing. When the pixel density gets higher, diffraction becomes more visible, the right way to say it. It's not that there's more or less diffraction based on pixel density. It's just more visible. Diffraction is more visible with higher density pixels. Uh, so there are some problematic issues with trying to increase the pixel density. Anthony says, realistically, I can see the current technology might be able to bring out 24 megapixel stack sensor in the future with their flagship. Not sure how accepting the market would be with only 24. I know, it's tough call. 20 is enough. 16 is enough. 12 is enough. I mean, honestly, uh, 'cause, I was doing birding today and I couldn't fill the frame for crap today because the birds were like this big and they were 100 meters away. Uh, so even if I could crop in because I had a very high resolution sensor, which I'm using a 20 megapixel. But let's say I had a 60 megapixel sensor, even cropping in on something like that, uh, atmosphere distortion, things like that all become a problem. Oh, excuse me. Okay. And John says, I think Kodak is still making movie film for high-end Hollywood directors and won't use anything but. Yeah, there's still some people out there, directors or whoever, still use film. What they'll do is they'll do everything in film. They'll buy like two different stocks. They'll buy daylight and they'll buy shade, right? They'll buy two different white balance stocks and they'll shoot everything with these two stocks of film. And then they convert it to digital, right? They'll use, a digital camera to convert it so that they can distribute it, but it was all shot in film. Noam Systems said that with the current technology I have with image processor, it does not have the power to process 40 megapixel resolution fast without losing performance capabilities. Yeah, currently, that can change, right? Um, because let's say they could put a processor in there right now that's powerful enough to handle 40 megapixels. It's going to put a serious drain on the battery, so you might only get off 100 shots before you have to replace the battery. Things like that. I mean, everything's all kind of related, right? You have to balance heat, battery life, resolution, all of those things. But but I think to be clear, for the last 15 years, OM Systems or Olympus has been in Micro Four Thirds have been working between 16 and 20 megapixels for over a decade. So they have nailed that. They have fine tuned and made that as good as they can. I think at this point. Uh, I forget the point I was going to make now. So that's why we have such great performance, right? 50 frame per second continuous autofocus in RAW at 20 megapixels, right? What would it be at 40 megapixels? It might drop down to just 10 frames per second if they decide to go to 40 megapixels. And then your battery life will be impacted more than 4 times that, right? So it's a chain reaction, right? Hey Rod, did you order the half leather? I did not. I'm waiting to see what more options are for the OM3. The leather case, if it's a leather case, I have to look at it. I'm really picky. I'm really picky because I only want to, they're not going to be cheap. I'm going to pay 70 to $100 for a case or a grip. I'm going to be picky. I'm waiting. I really like one wood grip that I saw and that I shared on my community page, but I didn't buy it yet because I can wait. I don't need that right away, but eventually I do want to get one. And the problem with Fuji is they went with f4. Had they gone to f2.8, it would have been very tempting. Yes. A little faster lens wouldn't hurt, but how big would that lens have to be and still maintain the quality, right? So that's the problem. If you want to resolve 100 megapixels, you're going to need some substantial lenses or a substantial lens design in terms of size and weight. So going down to f4, being a fixed lens camera, that one lens has to be really good, and they can only do it with an f4. I think if they went f2.8, the lens might be double the size, right? Um, and Dr. Matthew and the Gray Vanzini both vote for the Leica Deluxe 8 when we were talking about that. And Roger says, still looking to find a setup for scanning my film various sizes, thinking of using my tripod, so I need to find a cross member to hang the camera. Any thoughts? Okay, so they sell flatbeds with an arm so you can mount the camera so that it's completely parallel with the surface. That is critical, making sure that your camera sensor is completely parallel with the film plane so that you can capture the image sharp corner to corner. Now, depth of field can have a little bit of roll. If you're going to shoot at f8, you may be able to get away with a little bit being a little bit off, but not much because your camera's got to be pretty close because you're going to be using a macro lens or extension tubes, whatever. Get your camera relatively close to the film plane so that you can fill the frame with the sensor. Or fill the sensor with the entire negative. They sell kits like that though. It's not something I do, but they sell kits. I looked at it once where you use a macro lens and you want to use probably a manual focus macro lens. Because once you have the focus set, you don't need to change it again, right? And and the aperture and shutter speed, all of that. Once it's kind of fixed, you don't need to change again. You can step your films, frame to frame to frame with the same exact settings each time. But I would look for, I forget what it's called. Uh, it's one of these things. This is a used one. Brand new, they're 350. But you have this arm here, which makes sure the camera is perfectly parallel. Then you have this little light box down here, and then the feeder here to feed the film. So this looks like a good solution. It's not that expensive, $313. And the workflow is much faster than using, say, a flatbed scanner. I think, though, if you want to, they have different size negatives. Like this is the 35. I think this particular brand, you can buy like 120 size. You don't have to buy the 35. You can do 120, and then I know there's other formats as well. But the main thing being is, um, where's my chat section? The main thing being, you want the camera level. So you want to look for a table that does that, and then you need to have a light source underneath. Ideally, you want that light source to be a high quality light source. Like, don't use the back of your phone or something, right? Unless you're shooting in black and white. So that's where I would start, Roger, is something like that. And Dan says, I photographed, oh, that's right, you did your brother's wedding. Ended up going really well. Used my EM1 Mark II and D600 with dual harness and got great shots from both. Any general tips for editing wedding photos? Ooh, not really. I'm not really a wedding guy. I mean, I would just say generally make sure, uh, I can't give you any advice on that. When I do events, the events I've done is I just make sure I try to frame it so that everybody's looking at the camera. I think eye contact is important, so I would start pruning your images by eye contact and facial expressions, and then work on those first, because to me those are the money shots. Then all the other shots, if you have time, you can start working on those if they're kind of interesting or funny or capture something that you wouldn't otherwise be able to capture. But yeah, I would start pruning the images and separating them from people that have good eye contact, good facial expressions, and then work on all of those first and then start going through the rest if you have time. I don't know how many pictures you took, but if you I imagine you have hundreds, if not over 1,000 shots, and I would prune them that way first. That would be the biggest time saver. Oh, hold on. Let me take a 1 minute break here. Hello? Okay, sorry about that. Uh, okay, so let me pull up some pictures from today. I can't wait to see them myself. I looked at them on the back of my computer screen, but um, where's I'm gonna pull up my oh, here it is. Okay, they're here. So these are the so I shot primarily, yeah, 1,400 raw images. So here I was tracking a tree swallow, and it's just handheld, but none of these are very close. It's this little speck right here. I'll pull on one, and it's just, let me see if it's in focus. It's not really quite in focus either. Let's see. Anything good? This pissed me off. I had my focus limiter set wrong, so I couldn't get focus on him. And I was tracking, lost him. And this guy is way out. That one's in focus, but he's way out. one's a little bit closer. Did I get... Is that a butt shot, though? That's not bad. Why am I getting motion blur here? I need the... Oh, my shutter speed needs to be faster. With these little barn or tree swallows, you need to be at 1/4000th of a second. And I was at 1/2000, so I'm in focus, but it's motion blur. Unbelievable. I took all these pictures and I'm not gonna get any good ones. Let's see, lost him. Got him back in the frame, then he went into the bushes. I think this one's pretty good because he just jumped off a little bit of motion blur here. Dang it. But that one looks pretty good. Once I get these into DxO, these will look really good. This one looks really good. A little bit of motion blur again. Man, I gotta watch my shutter speed. I was at 1/2000. That is definitely the problem. This one is just a hair out of focus. Man, how about this one? So the camera kind of lost focus after, let's see, so he was in the frame the whole time. Here I got him back into the center of the frame. Okay, now we're back in focus, but it's just motion blur. Oh, oh, my bad. My bad, bad, bad. But I will say, I'm pretty good at tracking. You look at all the frames that I got of the bird in the frame. So I'll give myself, I'm gonna give myself a little credit for that. Because these birds are fast, man. This one looks pretty good. Again, there's some motion blur here, but I think there's not too much here, so I'll get a good shot. Once that gets processed, that'll look good. But let's find a decent shot. These are ones that those are some stupid ducks. This is another duck. Too far away. This one, he had his back to me. Yeah, that's not going to be any good. What a ridiculous day. So what I can do is I can highlight that one, scroll all the way up. Oh, you know what this is? This is a kingfisher. This one looks pretty good. It just needs to be a little brighter. Let's go into 200%. Yeah, that's going to look good. I mean, he's just a little speck in the screen, but that's a good shot. I got any of him closer? No, he was flying away at that point. How about up here? Yeah, he was flying away from me here. How about that one? No. None of these. None of these. Is he filling the frame at all? One looks pretty good. Oh, it's a butt shot. Good focus, though. The autofocus is really good. I saw where it lost one or two times. Oh, this was where's this bird at? There's a little tiny bird in here. This is a gold crown something, kinglet. Let's see. I need to find one where he's kind of looking up. Yeah, this one. This little guy here. This is a tiny, tiny bird, man. I think it's maybe 3 inches total. That's gonna be a good shot once I process it, but you can see it's really tiny in the frame. And then on the way out, there was this, what is it? This is a wood duck. This is the female wood duck, but I think I got one. I know I got a hawk. Yeah, this is the wood duck. Man, he was way up there. But, yeah, that's gonna be a good shot once I process it. It's just a little bit dark. Ah, there we go. That's the money shot. But this duck was way up in the tree. This I took using David's 150 to 600. So this lens is really good. I'm gonna process that one. And I got a hawk, I know. Oh, here's where I'm tracking that guy again. Well, these are pretty close. It's just not a good angle. Not a very good angle at all. But see here I had my shutter speed up to 1/4000th. I was ready for this guy. That's why these look better. I'm tracking. He's just gliding. Then he pivot and went into the trees, and then I lost him. I lost focus. You can see there's a little blurry spot there. Let's see. And then I found him again, but he's still just this blurred spot. I go down, down, down. I'm sorry. Let me go down. I'm looking for that hawk picture. I got a picture of a hawk that was really good. It's this? No, not that. Yeah, that's that. I got a decent hawk picture. Where is it? I think it's towards the end. It was after this bird, but what is this? Oh, that's a stupid sparrow. Where's my hawk picture? Oh, probably shot it in JPEG. No. Oh, here he is. I got one of him flying, this one. Yeah, baby. That's looking good. I just need to process a little bit. He jumped off of this tree. So this is a red-shouldered hawk. How about this one flying out? Ah, now we got this shadow. Damn it. How about this one? All right, this one might be all right. Yeah, that's looking good. That's going to process really nicely. I can bring up the shadows here, bring out the eyes. Yeah, that's going to look good. Anyhow, uh, that's what I did this morning before the live stream, was all of those pictures. I hope I didn't bore you guys too much. Uh, yeah, it is weird seeing a duck in a tree, isn't it? Normally you see them like maybe in a small bush or on the water in the nest, but on a tree? Come to think of it, that is a little weird, isn't it? And David, you got 2,182 from this morning. Wow. Mine'll go through quick. Like I'd say virtually all of the uh all of the tree swallow shots I can delete right now. I don't even have to go through them because he's only this big in the frame. What good is that gonna be? Probably half of the kingfisher pics, and then probably 90% of the wood duck pictures because there's 2 or 3 there that look really good, then there's about 10 more that are exactly the same as the one, right? So I got like 20 good shots, but they're the exact same thing. I can probably get rid of 18 of them and just keep one. But the tree swallow ones, I'll just have to delete en masse. They were terrible. And let me see, let me go up to or I'm just going through. Marcia says, swallows are very difficult to follow, nonetheless photograph. Yeah, they're tough, but after a little practice, not that hard. Well, a lot of practice, I should say. It took me a while, but now once I can get the bird in the frame, like if I see it in the frame, I'm pretty good at keeping up. Whether they pivot or come back. The only time I really lose them is if they go into the trees and bushes. Then the camera sometimes will lose focus, and then I can't see the bird in the EVF anymore. I have to look up and try and find it again. And that's the problem I was having today because I set the focus limiter wrong and the camera would lose focus and focus way in the background. So I set the focus limiter to focus between like 5 and 300 meters, or 5 and 150 meters, whatever, something like that. So, because if there's a little swallow and it's more than 200 meters away, it's going to be this big in the frame. What's the point of taking the picture? I have no reason to focus on anything more than 200 meters away when it's only this big, right? And the blue and grayish bird picture is awesome. I tried. Well, there might be one or two blue jay pics or bluebird, tree swallow pics, which is that blue grayish bird, or the kingfisher. That's kind of a bluish gray. Also, if you're looking at it on the stream, there'll be a couple there that might be decent. The hawk, definitely. That's going to be it. I'm hoping that's going to be good. The wood duck in the tree. That's that's kind of that was an easy shot. Not very. It's a good looking duck, but it's like just a bird on a stick. It's not that interesting. I like the ones in flight. I don't know about anybody else, but I would love to see OM System bring out a monochrome OM3 if one existed. I would seriously consider buying one. Really? That would be interesting though. It would be interesting. But they have that creative dial for black and white. It's not the same, I know. But I just don't think OM System has the bandwidth to come out with too many different models. And let's see. I don't think I've ever seen a duck in a tree out west here. That is weird, come to think of it. A duck in a tree. I mean, that guy was way up there. Him and his partner. And it says, back in the film days when shooting weddings with the OM2N and OM4T, I would only use 6 rolls, 36 exposure, 35 millimeter film. So a couple hundred shots, right? And for the whole wedding, more selective photography. Yeah. 6 rolls is only a couple hundred shots, and you figure there's going to be a few out of focus because you're manually focusing the whole time. Wow, that's something. Wayne says, I've seen wood ducks in trees in California. It makes sense though. Why do they call them wood ducks? First of all, maybe it's because 'cause they're in trees all the time. I don't know. I'm just kidding. I don't know nothing about nothing. There's so many apps now that are so useful. Something called Merlin. Ping was showing me. You just turn your phone on and it listens to the birds and identifies them by their song. That's crazy. And then, yeah, it's insane. Take a picture of something and then the phone will tell you what it is. I mean, I love it, but it's scary at the same time. You guys would not believe, you guys would not believe, I did an AI thing on one of my videos. Not for publishing, but just for myself to see. But the AI analyzed my video. It was kinda scary how good it was. I was like, "Wow." I can't believe how good AI is at analyzing conversations or generating conversations. It's crazy. Um, yeah, must be tricky landing in the tree with webbed feet. I can imagine. I mean, I can't imagine. I don't know. I'm not a duck. They're not sure if they're water birds or tree birds. That's funny. Wayne says the tricky part is getting them out of the box. Tricky part is getting ducklings out of the nest. Yeah. Wow. We'll see. I mean, between now and April, end of April, should be a lot of good like ducklings and things like that to get pictures of. I'm gonna try and get a lot. So you're gonna see a lot of birding shots this next 5, 6 weeks. Uh, it's ironic, is like I prefer actually architectural type, street photography, taking pictures of buildings. That's kind of my favorite genre. Birding is maybe second to that. Not a far second, but it's not close. It's not close, but the problem is buildings I can do year round, right? So I don't have to wait for springtime. Birds, I have to get them when they're here, you know? Uh, that's why you see kind of a burst of birding pics, and then you won't see anything for a while, birding wise. Then you'll see burst again later. Have webbed feet for and sharp claws that allow for easy perching. Yeah, they didn't seem to have any problems while they were up there. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions here. And I kind of showed you everything I did. I need to start editing those, I guess. I take a nap first, though, or take Ellie out. Ellie needs a little playtime with the frisbee and her little stuffed animal toys. uh, so I will. Let's see. Oh, Mark has a quick question here. Any opinions? Thinking of trading my 40 to 152.8 for the Leica 50 to 200 2.8 to 2.4. Uh, I don't think it's worth it. I mean, unless you're already shooting a Panasonic body, but if you have an Olympus or OM system body, I would stick with the 40 to 152.8. That losing a stop on the long end is kind of a big deal. Depending what you're using the lens for. I mean, if you need that extra 50 millimeters of reach, it isn't that much. But if you need it and you don't care about the f4, then yeah, that's fine. But I don't think optically speaking, one lens is sharper than the other. And when you use a native lens, if you're on Olympus, stick with Olympus or OM Systems, and vice versa. If you're with a Panasonic, then maybe getting the Leica 50 to 200 makes more sense. But specifically to OM Systems, 40 to 150 f2.8 Pro has gives you capabilities like 50 frames per second, continuous shutter, in-camera focus stacking, and maybe a couple other things, but those are the 2 that come to mind that you would lose if you got the 50 to 200 f2.8 to f4 with the Leica version. You would lose that capability, and I don't think that. Oh, so you have a G9 Mark II, I'm sorry. I missed this part. My chat is weird over here sometimes. Alright, so, you don't have to worry about all that I talked about. If you're talking about a G9 Mark II, I don't know what advantages other than the dual sync that you'll get with the 50 to 200 f2.8 to f4. In that focal range, between 50 and 200, dual synchronization is not that critical. Uh, In-body only is enough, so even if you use that on a Olympus camera, it wouldn't matter. But since you have a Panasonic camera, you can take advantage of that dual synchronization and potentially even get longer shutter speeds, right? I mean, yeah, longer shutter speeds, so that you can use a lower ISO, and that could be a significant advantage. Like I said, but it depends on the kind of photography you're going to be doing with it. But as an overall thing, if you can get good money for your f2.8, I would try to get the Leica version to go with your G9 Mark II, 'cause I'm sure there's gonna be more advantages. I think the other advantage is it works better with the autofocus system, but don't quote me on that, 'cause that was the old DFD system. It used to be the DFD contrast adapt system only worked with Panasonic lenses, but I don't think that's the case for the G9 Mark II anymore. But I wouldn't get it just for the dual synchronization. I don't think it's quite as critical at that focal length. If you're talking over 200 millimeters, then having the dual sync is nice. But I wouldn't do it for that. I would look for other reasons other than that. If there's some other capability that the 50 to 200 will give you that the 40 to 150 cannot, you need to put that in the equation to getting the Leica version. But on its face, let's say there's nothing the 40 to 150 can't do that the 50 to 200 can do, right? Let's say they're both equal in terms of what you can do on the camera with both. That difference in focal length, not that big a deal. I'd rather have the f2.8 rather than have the extra 50 millimeter at f4, just for me personally. And birds in flight video. So yeah, if that's your application, I would probably stick with the 4150 2.8 for that extra stop of light. Because birds in flight, a lot of times you you're working in all kinds of lighting conditions, and having that extra stop is a big deal. And 150 is just a bit short. Yeah, 200 ain't gonna save you. If you're a little bit short at 150, 200 is not gonna save you. Yeah, especially when you get out to f4. So you're better you're better off looking for a much longer lens. Like the one, what you should do is just get the 100 to 400. There's a Leica version, right? That's an excellent lens. Yeah, it's quite a bit slower. It's at least a full stop slower, maybe 2 stops than either of those. So Mark says, "Oh, you have the 100 to 400." Okay. And the 300 f4. Yeah, I wouldn't bother then. I would just keep the setup that you have. That's what I would do. Optically, these are all excellent lenses. I don't see anything that the 50 to 200 would give you. Not that tiny extra bit. Yeah, not gonna save you most of the time, right? Okay, so I'm gonna call it here. So you guys, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. It's always a lot of fun. A lot of tough questions today. Uh, but I will be back on Tuesday for some more shopping and deals. But Tuesday live stream has turned into a lot of what I do here, where I'm just answering questions most of the time, and I just share a few deals that I found on Amazon. But right now, that is probably the best way to support my channel is use my affiliate links that I have down, my robtrek.com/deals. Uh, so I can get some Amazon affiliate money that way. And then also I have the 99-cent membership, I have the direct donations, all of that stuff. But I think a lot of people seem to like the Amazon links. A lot of people have been using that more, and my donations have like taken a nosedive. Of course, it could be because I suck. I don't know, but I have some other videos coming out that I want to work on. Uh, I'll talk about more of those on Tuesday. But you guys, thanks so much for being here today. Great seeing everyone again. Have a good rest of your weekend and rest of the week, and be sure to join me on Tuesday if you can for another photo chat.